Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. Week 1 is in the books, and with us is Achilles Reign. Achilles, are you ready to break down Week 1? It went just like we thought it would, as always, in the NFL.
Yeah, man, I'm sure that it went just like everybody thought. Now, I'm ready to talk some football. Week 1's in the books, and I'm looking forward to Week 2, but let's get Week 1 out of the way first.
All right, let's head down south where the Saints played the Falcons, and the Saints won 27-26. I thought this would be a little bit closer of a game, but really, if you watch this game, it turned out the Falcons were really the better team for, I don't know, 3/4 of the game. Jameis was playing awful. Mariota was playing pretty well. The Falcons got up to 16, and then the fourth quarter hit, and it's just Falcons do what the Falcons have done for, I don't know, the last 7 years, which is blow this lead, make it a close game. Saints drive down, kick, I believe, a 52-yard field goal to take the lead. Falcons drive back down, have a game-winning field goal themselves. Pretty deep, though. I think it was a 60-plus yarder. Get that blocked. Saints win. So it's a little hard to sort of break this game down because, really, if you watched it, the Saints were terrible for up to about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then Jameis started hitting passes. The Falcons didn't know what they were doing anymore. Some clock mismanagement there. And what do you make of this game? I will say the Cordell Patterson thing appears to continue to be a thing. Who knows? They just needed to make him a running back, and at 30-plus years old, he turned into a legit NFL player. So how did you break this game down? Because it really is hard to be like, oh, the Saints were really, really good, because they really weren't. The Falcons were the good team here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I should have gone back to one of my, lines that I use every season, which is divisional opponents. It's probably going to be close. And I really didn't think that was going to be the case. I thought New Orleans was going to kind of coast in this one. I just thought that talent-wise, they were a much better team than Atlanta. But it actually turned out to be the opposite. Atlanta came out really gritty, really determined to try and put something, out on the field, prove things to the doubters, so to speak. And I thought they were doing a really good job. That first half, I think, was completely theirs. New Orleans seemed to kind of be caught off guard. They weren't sure what they were doing. And just from, the viewer standpoint, it looked to me almost as if New Orleans kind of didn't know what their identity was because they were struggling to either really implement the run or kind of go out there and let Winston handle it. They really didn't know which way they were going to attack. I mean, this could have easily, gone completely the opposite way. I know that New Orleans ended up winning the ball game late in that game, but I could definitely see different scenarios where Atlanta would have won that game. I mean, to begin with, you talk about Marcus Mariota, which, by the way, he played really good. I know he didn't have any touchdowns, but he played good football. You go back to last season, he was doing pretty good. In that first quarter, there was a moment where they were driving the ball. They were getting ready to score a touchdown, and he ended up fumbling the ball because he tried doing too much with it. And I think that was kind of the point where, all right, New Orleans has a shot to at least compete with these guys just from talent point. But, I don't know, man. Week 1, I know it's only week 1, and a lot of us like to overreact, but I'm just so taken aback by a lot of the outcomes for these games. I didn't expect a lot of the stuff that happened, and this was one of them.
Yeah. Do you come away from this game feeling better or worse about the Saints? I know it's week 1 where we don't want to overreact, but you sort of get a preview of what these teams look like. They sort of look like what I thought they'd look like, which is at points in time they look like a really good team with a lot of weapons, and then at points in time they just don't look to be able to be a great team. Whether it's offensively or really, I thought defensively, the way they couldn't stop the run, Patterson had 120 yards. Marcus Mariota had a 72 yards. I thought that was a little alarming how, sort of beat up the middle and on the outside they got in the run. Do you come away from the Saints feeling better or worse?
I'll tell you what. There's definitely some positives here. Okay, one, Taysom Hill. They're still utilizing him. They're still using him as a sort of a gadget weapon there. I thought he looked pretty good. I didn't think they would utilize him as much as they did, especially with Sean Payton out of the loop there in New Orleans. But I think they did some good things. And the fact that they were able to come back and win the game, I think, says a lot about this team going forward. But the fact that they got to that point, the fact that it had to come down to that, I think is a little bit alarming. Now, it is only week one, so take that, with a grain of salt. I don't think it's that serious, but if you ask me to give you certain things, I think one, it's impressive they were able to come back. Two, it's impressive they were able to use, Taysom Hill the way they've been using him over the last few seasons. But a little alarming that a team like Atlanta, that a lot of us assume won't be that good at the end of the year, was able to give him such a tough match.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I'm not going to think Atlanta's more than what I thought they were, which is I think early they'll be a little spunky. I will say the rookie Drake London, who was even questionable play this game, looked pretty good. They didn't get Kyle Pitts involved as much as I thought, but, I think that's to come, especially as sort of if Drake London can have a couple more games and, take coverage away from Kyle Pitts. I did notice that, basically with only two legit outside receiving threat weapons in London and Pitts, that a lot of the coverage was going to Pitts. So that might open up a little bit if London can continue to prove to be a weapon there. But other than that, not overreacting to the Saints, and the Falcons sort of what I thought they were, a spunky little team right now. We'll see if they can get a couple wins to keep themselves alive. And, if they don't, that's when I start to worry that we start to get, in and around that tank mode. But
I did have a question about that game before we move on real quick. I don't know how much of it you actually got to watch, but they had that the Saints had that moment in the fourth when they're getting ready to try and win the game, when they're driving down the field and it's third down, and for some weird reason they decide to clock the ball and stop the clock. Makes it fourth down, so then they're going for a field goal with a lot of time left on the clock. What was the point of that? I'm thinking if you're going to try and kick a game-winning field goal or a go-ahead field goal, you try to leave as little time as possible on the clock. I couldn't understand that decision.
Yeah, I saw that too. I just chalked that up to Dennis Allen and probably what we're sort of in store from. There was a lot of clock mismanagement this weekend. That one was one, which is what basically allowed the Falcons to even have a chance to come back down and kick that field goal to win it. I don't know, but I guess you can't complain because they won the game. But I certainly would have had a lot more to say if Koo hadn't have gotten that field goal block and it went in. And I'm like, well, this is why we don't trust Dennis Allen and Jameis Winston to win tight football games. But I guess it doesn't come back to haunt them. But you're right. Good thought on bringing that up because that's sort of another note where you. I think gambling-wise, you sort of look at that and any game where the Saints are favored, and that keeps it in your head. Like, if they're playing a good team, like if that's Tampa Bay, they're probably down to the 25 and kicking a field goal and not the, 49-yard line trying to kick a field goal here, and they end up losing the game. So, yeah. That was a little weird. I didn't totally understand it, but, there were numerous clock management errors, and I just go, maybe football coaching is just bad, which this next game we're going to get into might overall prove that. The Bears won 19-10. I don't really know how. The Bears hit two pass plays. Basically the whole football game. legitimately 2 pass plays the whole football game and scored on both of them. Then in the fourth quarter, a monsoon really hit. The weather was bad throughout. The field was soaked and in terrible conditions. I know they're trying to purposely make this stadium look as bad as possible so they can get their new stadium in the old horse park, but for God's sake, they had to paint on the lines on the screen so we knew where the ball was. Basically, in this one, I thought Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers basically just got arrogant. That first half, the Bears had 3 total yards passing, basically couldn't even move the ball forward. And, it was 10-0, and I think the 49ers packed it in thinking, okay, good to go. We'll put this one away, play conservative as possible. Bang, bang. Bears hit 2 pass plays. And then in that fourth quarter, when the rain just really was coming down and the field was basically, Lake Michigan on there was no way anybody was moving the football left and right. Trey Lance didn't look great, but quite honestly, I don't know who you could tell me in this game looked great. So what did you make of this game here?
I mean, exactly what you just said. I was looking forward more to see what Justin Fields and what, the 49ers quarterback Trey Lance were going to do coming into this game. I wasn't too concerned about the outcome of it. I actually thought it was an easy game for the 49ers to kind of, get themselves going, a good warm-up game for them. And I was completely wrong. As you mentioned, the 49ers seemed to be dominating pretty much most of the game. They were causing fits in the backfield sorry, I'm drawing a blank again. I'm a little tired. I had to pull a double here. For Justin Fields, they were pretty much in the backfield the entire time. And it seemed like the pass rush for the Bears was also working on the Niners. I don't know how much of it we attribute to Trey Lance and inexperience on, reading the defense properly. But I don't know, man. I know it's game 1, and I'm not going to go overreact here, but you have both quarterbacks here, both guys who are potential star quarterbacks, at least based off where they were drafted.
Yeah.
And neither of them threw for over 170 yards. Both quarterbacks were held under 170 yards in this game. And I could totally understand Justin Fields' side of it because that 49ers defense, at least prior to the season, on paper, a lot of people were considering a top defense. And it's more understandable. But for Trey Lance to perform the way he did, I don't know, man. I guess I'm going to give it a few more weeks. But just based off this week alone, he doesn't look quite ready yet. Yeah, and that's just my opinion.
No, you're right. I watched this game, bits and pieces, and then I watched the condensed version on replay the other day because I wanted to get a real feel of what he didn't look great. Now, it's his first start. The weather and the field was atrocious, so I'm willing to give a pass. But he looked a bit overwhelmed there was too many things going on. Nobody really of meaning on the 49ers offense got involved. Ayuk hit 2 for 40 with really 1 catch for 30 was basically his offense. Debo 2 for 14. He did have that, touchdown run, but, wasn't involved in the passing game. I know Elijah Mitchell got hurt, but, you do this thing where the 49ers, basically the same thing his father did, who have just punted on legit number 1 running backs and thinking their scheme and their system can, become better than what the running backs, are. And, so Elijah Mitchell's hurt. But that's no different than Raheem Mostert being hurt the last handful of years. And then you go to Jeff Wilson Jr. So I don't love hearing those excuses that blah, 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 running back was hurt. Well, I know we all loved Elijah Mitchell in fantasy, but I'm not stunned he's hurt or not playing well, and I'm not stunned Jeff Wilson Jr. comes in and, 9 carries for 22 yards. I'm not stunned he's not playing well. These are, third down backs mostly that they're trying to turn into, 1,000-yard rushers mixed with Lance, mixed with Samuel. I will say I'm disturbed by all the Bears slurpage and, everybody, it looks like Fields outplayed Lance. And, yes, there were 2 broken down pass plays and breakdown coverage that the Bears hit, but Justin Fields was 8 for 17 for 120 yards. All right, and a pick. He wasn't exactly throwing darts out there that, makes him look like he's the second coming. Like I said, at halftime, he had 3 yards passing, and that was when the weather was sort of okay at that point. So, I'm not ready to crown the Bears. I just thought, 49ers got up 10-0, packed it in, thought, yeah, the Bears aren't moving the ball. Bing, bing, 2 pass plays really quick, touchdown, and then the monsoon hits, and they're like, oh, crap. No one can move the ball anymore. We've lost. And that was pretty much that. So I'll give Trey Lance a couple more weeks before, improvement needs to be shown. And then you start getting into the conversation of when do you put Jimmy G in and sort of go into the devil than the devil you don't know. And the Bears sort of are what I thought they were. Yes, they get the win, and that's what the NFL is. Sometimes professional teams can also win games that they probably don't deserve to win. I mean, especially if you look at the stats in this one. 17 first downs to 15 49ers. Total yards, 331 to 204. Average yards per play, 5 for the 49ers, 3.6 for the Bears. Basically everything was 49ers except the score. And that happens sometime. But any other takeaways from this one? Do you pull the 49ers back a little bit? And it's funny, this conversation, as we look at the NFC West, I
know. I looked at that last night.
And the number 1 Seattle Seahawks. We'll get to the Arizona Cardinals, but the NFC West looks a little bit worse than I think we thought it was, but honestly, the whole NFC, I don't think you can tell me the team who you go, wow, that one's really good, and then you go up to the AFC, and I can probably list 4 who I think are really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, my only thing, to close out this Niner-Bear game is, I know the injury for the running back is definitely, a bit of a punch in the gut for the 49ers, but I do believe that their system is very running back friendly. I believe that who was Jeff Wilson?
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson. Yeah, he looks like he's going to start going forward. I think that he'll be okay. Not to mention the fact that they've got Debo, which they used as a running back, mostly as a running back this last game. And maybe they can get Kittle back, and maybe that helps Lance a little bit. Not having him definitely put a hindrance on his performance.
Yeah, we'll see. But opening game was not amazed and thrilled by Trey Lance. All right, let's call it the most entertaining game on the weekend. Maybe not the best played, but certainly entertaining, and we had a handful of bets in this one that turned out well for us, unlike the 49ers and that teaser I told you where someone would let us down. And, of course, it was the 49ers who let us down. But Pittsburgh 23, Bengals 20. First and foremost, I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line issues are fixed. I think we both had a couple questions. Yes, they made some signings, but we wanted to see it on the field. And the Steelers' front line was basically in their backfield the whole game, forcing Burrow into some turnovers, and which gave them enough of the lead to sort of hold on there as the Bengals made their push towards the end. And then I guess their long snapper got hurt. Backup long snapper comes in and looks like he's never snapped a football before for 3 games. And then for some reason, the Bengals decided in overtime, to not go for it on 4th and 10 and punt the ball back to the Steelers. Steelers drive down, get a field goal, and win it. What'd you make of this one? Are you a little worried for the Bengals here? Line issues seem to persist. Turnovers were all over the place. What'd you make of this?
Well, to me, this was probably one of the most entertaining games of this weekend. There were obviously a lot of games, and there was a lot of sloppy football. Let's just say that, okay? But it's week one. You kind of anticipate that happening regardless. And we saw a little bit of it in this game by both teams. Am I concerned about the Bengals and their offensive line issues? A little bit, but again, it's week one, and we'll be saying this a lot throughout this show. It's week one, so I'm not gonna, take too much of that into consideration when judging this Bengals team. But I gotta say, it is concerning because even though this Pittsburgh defense can be pretty stout, especially with Watt there, who's now hurt, by the way.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
I still think that offensive line, based off the money that they put into it, should have performed better than that. Now, it is week one. That's not to say that's, 6 weeks down the line, it won't be the best offensive line in football. But as it stands right now, a little concerning.
Yeah, definitely so. This looked a little bit more like the Bengals in the regular season of, last year, especially the first, I'd say 12 to 14 weeks of the season where, they hit some really, really big highs on the offense. Chase was good. Mixon was good. Hurst was good. Boyd got hurt, but, there were plays to be made all over the field, but, 4 interceptions, a couple fumbles by, Burrow, which totally gave Pittsburgh this game and let them sort of do what they wanted to do. They weren't great on offense. Najee Harris, 10 for 23 before he left, with an injury, and then Jalen Warren came in, didn't do much. Trubisky, he was pretty much what you'd think, not awful, but, not exactly spectacular. That's going to, put the team on his back and carry you to a win. Really, if you get 6 turnovers, you probably shouldn't have to go into overtime and try to kick 3 game-winning field goals, to put it away, especially when one of those is a touchdown. So, this might be the highest of highs with the Pittsburgh Steelers here, because I didn't think that offense looked great. Certainly that offensive line just can't open holes for the running back. Harris says he'll be back this week, but that looks like, foot and ankle injury that's going to linger for, 6 to 8 weeks, and continuing to play on it isn't going to help. And then you mentioned it. Watt tore his pec. Now, I know he's trying to find some, whack doctor that will be like, yeah, sure, we'll just put some Kenzio tape on it and you can be back in 2 weeks. I don't know if he can find that, because last I heard he was on his 3rd or 4th opinion trying to find somebody that said it was okay to go ahead and play, which, he might give it a go, but he's certainly not going to be TJ Watt that we saw for 3/4 of this game.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, and it's just very unfortunate, especially on the play that it happened on. He was getting ready to sack Burrow, and he did one of those diving sack attempts. And, I mean, it looked like he landed okay, but you know how it is, man, with sports injuries. Everything might look fine. Doesn't mean everything is fine.
Yeah. If you sort of had to rank the teams here in the AFC East,
AFC North or East?
AFC North, sorry. Do you think Pittsburgh can hang with them with this Watt injury? Because, quite honestly, we'll get to Cleveland, but they somehow got a win. And then they're looking at the Jets, who, in case anybody wants to wonder, I'm probably going to hammer them in the decision to throw 60 times with Joe Flacco. But I'm a little nervous, the Steelers team, like this was it. This was the peak. Now they got the Patriots coming in this week who, are ailing themselves, certainly with Mac Jones being out. But without Watt, I don't know if this offense is capable of putting enough points on the board to win a lot of football games.
I mean, he's just such an explosive player. He's such a game changer. He impacts the game in so many different ways on defense that I think it also creates, excitement on the offensive side of the ball. I think that if not having him is definitely going to hurt this team. I don't know exactly how much of an impact it's going to make. I don't know how many losses I would attribute to his injury, but it's definitely going to impact this team, and it worries me a little bit because I was so high on this team coming into the season that that this is going to be their peak. And if that's the case, it's sad. But if I had to rank them right now, just based off Week 1 performance, I would have to say, with the injury, probably Bengals, Steelers, Browns. Ravens.
Yeah.
Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns with the injury.
Yeah.
Without the injury, I would say Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, Browns.
Yeah. I'm curious to see, and maybe he can find the doctor who gives him the okay and he can work his way back. I mean...
Why doesn't he call his brother? I'm sure his brother's got plenty of doctor's numbers in there.
Yeah, I'm sure. They keep clearing him, but we see him more and more in street clothes as a cheerleader as well. So let's move to the other game where we had some questions about free agent signing and whether they solved answers, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Detroit Lions. Philadelphia's secondary, still not all that great. They did get the win, 38-35 in a shootout here, but I will say, it for as high as we were on the Eagles, I'm still a little nervous about this defense because, they got up, but they couldn't hold the lead. They got up, they couldn't hold the lead. They got up, they couldn't hold the lead. And I don't know, as many talented players as this Eagles team has on offense, I don't know if you can consistently win games having to put 38 points on the board every week because basically the Lions did whatever they wanted in that second half. So what'd you make of this one? I will say that Eagles offense looked pretty good. Hurts was great, 18 for 32, 243, and then 17 for 90 on the ground. Good running game, good passing game. But I think that defense is still a work in progress. Now, every other team in the NFC East, granted a couple got some wins, but I'm not sure any of us were overly impressed with the other three.
Yeah, look, we could probably make a drinking game for Week 1, just saying this. It's Week 1, and you take a shot every time we say it's Week 1. But I'm really hopeful that this defense, especially that secondary for the Philadelphia Eagles, will kind of get their stuff together because, as you mentioned, Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions were doing whatever they wanted to. Now, I know that Swift was playing really good football, and it opened up a lot of things for the rest of the guys in that team. But there was a point in that game where I switched to a different game because I had the Eagles -4, and I looked at the score, and I'm like, oh, this is over. I'm like, they got this. All they got to do is play defense. Next thing I know, wife is telling me, oh, yes, I had the Lions +4, and they covered. I'm like, they covered? So I went to go look, and sure enough, they won the game by 3 points. I was like, this typical Eagles stuff, you know what I mean? This is just what we've seen from for the last couple seasons. But I won't hammer them too much. I hope that just like all the other teams that I've been talking about today, I hope that they can get their stuff together because they do have a lot of potential, especially right now, playing football in the NFC. We saw this week was really rough week for NFC teams, and they have a really good shot at making themselves contenders, but they got to get that defense together.
Yeah, definitely so. And on the Lions front, I know they were trying to tote their defense the whole time. It wasn't any better. They were leaking all over the place on the pass, on the run. I thought the offense played well, and basically I think this is what the Lions are going to be. An entertaining team that might clip a few people, but I don't think you can say they can consistently win games, and I certainly don't after this game, foresee them really getting to like that 8-9 win mark, which I think they thought they could get to and, try to make a push for those playoffs. They sort of did what I thought they were. Spunky, but not really quite good enough to win games.
One of the notes that I have here on my notepad, it's early on in the game, and it just says Detroit Lions are playing really aggressive. The question is, can they keep this up for the entire game? If they can, they might be in this game. But I really expected them to drop off. I thought a lot of that early on aggressiveness was due to them being pumped up for game one. They were just kind of hard knocks. There's a lot of positive energy behind that team. But listen, man, kudos to them. It wasn't just the Eagles playing bad defense. It was also the Lions coming out and being aggressive. So you got to give them a little bit of props where it's deserved. So props to the Lions team for at least sticking with it.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's move on to Miami, and the Dolphins won 20-7 over the Patriots. Not a lot to break down on this one. Miami basically dominated from start to end. Tua looked, I thought, okay, not great. He made a handful of throws, but I thought he missed a handful of throws. I think this game could have been a lot bigger of a scoreline than it was. There was nothing on the Patriots side. Both you and I were a little down on the Patriots, but I thought this looked even worse than I thought. Mac has a back injury. Now, he says he's going to play next week, and he's fine. Granted, if my backup quarterback was Brian Hoyer and I saw this offensive side, I'd push to, put my starter in as well. But what do you make of this game? It was just basically one team is much better than the other team here.
Yeah, listen, I wasn't super high on the Patriots this year. I thought that there'd be some regression off of last year now. I know that expectations were a little high just based off the performance they had, but I thought there was going to be regression here, and that's kind of exactly what we got. I thought the Dolphins team was better, not by a long shot, but I thought they were significantly better than this Patriot team, so I expected a little bit more from them. I was a little disappointed with the rushing attack for the Dolphins.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like they have good players, and they just couldn't put the right scheme together. I don't know how much of that we attribute to the coaching staff, but going up against the Bill Belichick team, especially defensively, they're always going to be tough. I don't know, man. It's just one of those games that I kind of tuned in and out, mostly because I wanted to see Tyreek Hill and Waddle, on opposite sides of the field. Kind of all that speed was a little mesmerizing, but
yeah, it was.
We saw a little bit of it. There was a few plays where you just don't know which side of the field to look at because there's just so much speed there. But good win for the Dolphins. They get a divisional win. The Patriots, hopefully Mac is okay because I don't think they can do much better without Mac. He's probably their best option going forward.
Yeah. Maybe this is what the Dolphins are going to be. You mentioned it. It's like you watch it and it's like, oh, okay. And then it's bam, bam, bam. And maybe that's what it's going to be. Sort of mundane and boring for, 3/4 of it. And it's 5 or 6 plays made by Waddle, made by Hill, maybe made by the running backs. It wasn't this game, but they certainly had a lot of speed and looked explosive. It just, you sort of watch this game and you're like, this should be like that Bills game in the playoffs versus the Patriots where it's 60-0 and they're hitting, 20 explosive plays because basically on the other side of the ball there was nothing there and they just sort of hit 1 or 2 and sort of took their win and were fine. So, we'll see if the Dolphins can progress, but I'm a little worried for the Pats here. It was basically as mundane as you get. I think Mac was like 21 for 33 for 213 yards. The running backs had like 22 carries for 78 yards. It's like everything is just blah. It's nothing. It's like the opposite of Miami, where you think they're 4 or 5 plays that are going to be made with explosive playmakers. And basically you watch the Patriots and you're like, nobody's going to make a play. It's, it has to be a 20-play drive of 4 yards a hit to basically for them to get a score.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very vanilla, but honestly, even vanilla is more exciting.
Yeah, I think so. It might be a hard watch for the Patriots all year long.
You know what the best part about it is? Wifey's a Patriots fan, so I get to watch them. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. My guess is they're probably on enough primetime games to bore us out as well. All right. Maybe the worst game of the week. Ravens 24, Jets 9. This was about as no hope as it gets. And then for some reason, the Jets' game plan was let's have Joe Flacco throw 60 times. Have you ever seen a man throw 60 times and have a 5.2 average per completion?
It takes you back to the Jeff Fisher days.
What the hell were the Jets doing? Why? By the way, Michael Carter had 10 carries for 60 yards. So the running back was averaging 6 yards a carry, which makes this even more confusing. And the fact that they have 4 different running backs who they all highly tout makes it confusing. Why did they throw 60 times in this game?
I honestly have no clue. This is one of those games. If I remember correctly, I took the spread on Baltimore and I took the under for this game.
You did?
And honestly, the reason I did that is because I thought that the Jets would go to a more run-heavy approach, especially with Wilson being out. And you know the Ravens, they're going to run the ball with Lamar Jackson and everything. And when I started watching the passing attempts just constantly shooting up for the Jets, I was like, if they get something going, I'm in trouble with this under. And sure enough, I look and it's 33-point score total. So it worked out in my favor. I wouldn't recommend that. If they're whoever they're playing, who are the Jets playing next?
The Jets had, who was it? I think it was another difficult game.
You just mentioned it too.
Yeah, it was the Browns. They're playing the Browns. So the Browns are going to be basically 2-0 and are going to end up in the bloody playoffs.
Listen, if the Steelers game is any indication as to what the Steelers game, who the Browns just beat up on? The Panthers. Yeah, if the Panthers game is any at least warning as far as to what type of defense they're going to play. We saw McCaffrey, who, by the way, I had McCaffrey over 62 yards, I think, and he couldn't reach that milestone. But if that's any indication as to the way they're going to play defense, then they're in for a rough day because first of all, that pass rush is going to get to them all day, and they're not going to be able to run the ball. They had some success against the Ravens. They're not going to be able to do that against this Browns team. They looked pretty stout up front. I have no clue what to make of this team now. I was really excited for their offseason, but how many times does it happen where we get really pumped up about an offseason and it just doesn't translate to the regular season? Now, it's just game one. If you have your shot, take your shot. But hopefully it changes from here because going forward, if this is what the Jets are going to bring to the table, they're in for a long, long season.
Yeah, definitely so. And then, the press conference afterward where, Robert Saleh's up there, he's taking receipts on everybody who's bad-mouthing the Jets. Why the hell can't we just go up there and go, our bad, that was a pretty stupid game plan to have Joe Flacco throw 60 times in a freaking football game against the Baltimore Ravens. No, we're taking receipts. And taking receipts on what? Your 3-win team and you are going to be fired? That's basically all that's going to happen this year. I think that angers me more when he comes out there and tries to be confident and cocky. His defense has sucked both years that he's been there, and that's his, quote-unquote expertise. And whatever the hell they're doing on offense, granted, their quarterback isn't there, but that confuses me more that you go, well, our backup's in, and it's Joe Flacco, who's been finished since 2012, and we're going to call 60 pass plays. It's
it made
actually
no
more than
sense.
60 pass plays because he got sacked like 6 different times. So it's actually like 65 pass plays.
I will say that I'm happy that I took that bet. But listen, if you're a Jets fan, you have to be at least a little upset at the game plan that the coaching staff put together because, as you mentioned, yeah, they're down their quarterback Wilson, but even if they weren't, I mean, no offense to Wilson, but
Yeah, he
he's
doesn't need
not
to
he's
be
not
throwing
elite.
60 times either.
No, there's
No
no
one
need for
needs to
that.
be throwing 60 times. Maybe
Listen,
Patrick Mahomes. Maybe
all,
Shallon.
all you can do, to silence them and the coaching staff is maybe play some tape on the Bengals when Burrow was a rookie. Maybe they'll learn a lesson because I know that it's their veteran and you probably don't care about him, but your young quarterback needs a backup anyway. So maybe protect the quarterback position, which is very important, and run the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely so. All right. Let's get to the game that broke our soul and broke our wallets. The Commies came away with a win. Once again, this was a little like the Saints game, and I'm not 100% sure how the Commies came away with a win. Carson Wentz made a couple good throws down the stretch. Granted, he threw 2 terrible interceptions in the fourth quarter when I thought we had this game locked up.
I did too.
I don't know. Honestly, I thought the Jags were the better football team all day long. They found ways to screw themselves over, stopped on the goal line. Travis Etienne dropped 2 guaranteed touchdown passes. And then, I thought Lawrence played pretty well, but, that last throw at the end as they're trying to drive down. I get it. You're trying to get chunk yardage and get down the field to get, you have to get a touchdown. But, to roll up and just fling it like that when you got 40 or 50 seconds, that wasn't the right play at that point in time. So, what's your take on this game? I can't say I watched Washington play and was overwhelmed. Basically I just thought Jacksonville handed this game on a platter, and Jacksonville controlled it, and Washington made a couple plays there at the end that won them the game.
Yeah, listen, you pretty much nailed it there. I think that just talent-wise, Jacksonville is slightly better than Washington is here. I kind of thought that Jacksonville would pull the win here because, A, they're slightly more talented, and B, I thought that the turmoil going on with the Washington organization would also, kind of translate into the game also a bit. But I was watching early on that game. That was one of the games that I was really interested in, just to kind of see what the Commies were bringing to the table and what Lawrence looked like, post the Urban Meyer era. And I got to be honest with you. I know it's week 1, take your shot. But I feel like Lawrence last season, his development was basically stunted by Urban Meyer and the coaching and all the drama that went on with that team. Because early on in that game, he had an easy touchdown, and he threw it into heavy traffic. He had guys wide open, and he didn't make the proper read, and instead he threw it into double coverage where the safety was at, also over the top. So technically it was even triple coverage, if you want to call it that. When he had 2 guys that a guy who was covered one-on-one and a guy who was wide open. And I was sitting there watching, I'm like, yeah, his development is late. It's in the later stages. He should be further along, but because of everything that happened last season, I think he's a little further behind than he should be. So I think they'll be okay. I think that halfway through the season, he'll start to kind of get the flow of things. Yeah. He'll get more comfortable with the speed of the NFL. Not that he's not already, because I know he played an entire season last year, but there's so much going on when you're trying to learn all the little fundamentals of football, especially at the pro level, that I think he's not where he should be at. But I trust in his talent, and I think that he'll get there. But Yeah, they gave that game away. That was their game to win, and they gave it away.
Yeah, I know. It broke our hearts and our wallets. And this next one didn't quite break our wallets because I think we got it on Sunday when it was up to 2.5. It might have broken my significant other's heart, however, because she got it the night before at 1.5. So she took the L and I took the W, and we took the L because we got it in our contest at the start of the week. Browns 26, Panthers 24. Browns kick a 60-yard field goal basically to win this game. Nothing much for Brissett. Baker looked basically like Baker Mayfield has looked his whole career. There's some throws where you go, nice throw. And then there's some throws like that interception where you're just confused. I know Cleveland sort of controlled the ball in the running game with Chubb and time, but are we already putting like kids' gloves on McCaffrey? 10 carries for 33 yards? I mean, if you're that scared he's going to get hurt in game one, what the hell?
Get rid of him.
I get it. They didn't have the ball a ton, so some of that is there, but more McCaffrey uses needed to be made.
Especially when they had the lead.
Yeah. I didn't think they managed this game very well, and certainly when they had the ball, they got that. I think it was a turnover. They had it on, I don't know, maybe the 30, the 25, with about 3 minutes to go when they were going to kick their field goal to go up, and basically they ran 3 terrible plays, burned, I don't know, 10 seconds off the freaking clock. You get, 1 first down, the game's pretty much over. You get 2 first downs, the game is over. And basically, they as good as called plays that were kneeling. They called 3 basically no-hope plays, kick the field goal, go up, 1, hand the ball to Cleveland with, I think it was a little over 2 minutes left. And granted, you're handing it to Jacoby Brissett, who was pretty awful, but then they played this shell defense the whole way down, and basically Jacoby Brissett just worked him down throwing 5-yard passes. He didn't even work him down all that far. I will say it was a 60-yard field goal. And then they sort of got a little, officiating luck because, he did the fake spike that you aren't allowed to do anymore. The refs flagged it, then put their flag in the pocket and said no foul. I guess we're giving Cleveland the benefit of the doubt now. That's what we should do. Kick the field goal and win the game. This doesn't look good for Matt Rule. I thought he mismanaged this game because I thought Carolina should have come away with the win here. But what'd you make of this one?
Now again, week 1, so I'm not going to hold Rule not going to hold his feet to the fire. But in my opinion, he's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And for a coach who's in the hot seat, with all the changes you've gone through, bringing Baker in, you finally have McCaffrey back, and this is the game plan you put together. This is the clock management that you put together. I feel like there's no urgency there. That's what I really did see from this team. There was no urgency, even when they were up, because there was a point when they looked like they were going to win that game. As you mentioned, they basically run 3 plays that are not going to get you anything, and it made no sense to me. Now, I also, McCaffrey, I got to say, he still got the moves.
Yeah,
the moves are still there.
The handful of times he got the ball, he looked pretty good. He just didn't get the ball a lot. And, like I said, if you're scared to use him because you're scared he's going to get hurt and you lose him for the season, then what the hell is his value? There is no value. His value is that he can catch the ball and run the ball. And he's, a weapon. So utilize your weapon. But, they're just scared he's going to get hurt. So kid gloves, we want him for, week 2. But if you give him 10 touches, that doesn't do anybody any good. It,
Not to mention the fact that a lot of these guys, they need the hits, they need the contact, they need the physicality to get their bodies in tune with the way the game is played. I mean, we've all noticed that ever since they stopped doing all these, practices with pads on, the injuries have significantly climbed as the pads have gone off. So you got to take every chance you can get to get these guys in there and get some contact, especially at the running back position. And I'm sorry, but your best weapon on offense is McCaffrey. So for you to utilize him the way you did, it's not just a slap in the face of McCaffrey, but also your fan base. Because I'm sure if you're a Panthers fan, you looked at this game, you penciled it as a W, because that's the way I looked at it. I'm like, Baker's going to come out hungry. They got McCaffrey back. This Browns team is in turmoil, and I mean, that's why we play the game, I guess. But I gotta say, a little disappointed with Rule and the way he put together his game plan.
yeah, definitely so. Clock management at the end was just awful. Anything on the Browns? I mean, they basically did exactly what we said. The defense was going to be pretty solid, which it was. They're going to hand the ball to Nick Chubb. He's really
And
good.
Kareem Hunt.
And that's basically what they did. They handed the ball to Nick Chubb. The defense was aggressive, made some plays. Now they gave up some plays, but that's sort of the way they play. So, I mean, nothing totally shocked me from Cleveland's end. They looked exactly as I thought they were going to look. Other than they're probably going to be 2-0. And like I said, if they can get in and around, 4 or 5 wins by the time Watson gets back, that throws him into the mix for that last playoff spot.
Yeah, if Watson can come back and look 80-90% of what the last time we saw him play, then this team's going to end up being really good. And I hate saying that because I wasn't a big fan of the big trade that happened. But listen, it went exactly as we thought for Cleveland's side of the ball. They played really good defense and they ran the ball. They tried their best to turn Jacoby into a game manager, which is exactly the path you want to take if you're trying to win games right now with your quarterback being suspended. So kudos to them. They got the win. A little disappointed for Carolina and their game plan, but we'll see what happens in week 2.
Yeah. All right. Colts Texans 2020. Basically, the Colts didn't show up for 3 quarters and then scored 17 points in the 4th. And then I guess both teams had a handshake agreement that neither wanted to really try to win the football game. The final 4 minutes of that football game was a sham, as nobody wanted to try to win it. Blankenship missed I don't want to say chip shot, but probably a field goal that professional kickers should be making. I don't know. This was about as blah as you get. I will say the Texans look spunky like I thought they would. They're decent on the pass game. Mills looked like he looked towards the end, solid. Everybody who had the Dameon Pierce love, I told you so. Rec Birdhead had the more carries. Don't listen to what comes out of training camp. That would be my number one thing. Everyone lies. But yeah, Taylor 31 carries, 161. Ryan 32, 50, 352. But a tie. What'd you make of this?
I think, listen, I know it's not a loss, but I still think it's very disappointing if you're the Colts here. If you're Houston, a tie is better than a loss, and especially when the majority of naysayers had you losing this game pretty handedly. I've got 2 notes on this game. My first note says Indy goes for it on 4th and goal and gets stuffed. Houston is playing gritty, which I thought that's exactly what Houston did throughout the entire game. They played gritty and nasty, and that's what they got to do if they're going to try and win games. And my last note is just about Blankenship missing the game-winning field goal with 1:57 left in overtime. It was a bad day for kickers. Let's just say that, okay? Let's not put it all on him. But these kickers, it's week 1. They're rusty. They haven't really had a chance to kick a lot. But I don't know, man. I think it's a little frightening to see this many errors with time management by coaches and missed field goals by kickers. I mean, I can't remember the last time we had this many in an opening game of the season. So disappointed if you're the Colts. Happy if you're Houston. This all I really got to say about that
Yeah,
game.
I think that's about it. I think the Texans will be spunky all year long. We'll see if
They kind of were last year too.
Yeah, we'll see if that defense can hold up. But I think offensively they can sort of find ways to score points. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you have to defend them. They got a run game. They got some receivers on the outside. Mills looks capable of playing quarterback, so we'll see how spunky they get. I think anytime they're getting 7 points, certainly at home, it's one thing to take. Speaking of mundane games, Giants-Titans. Giants won 21-20 despite our friend Dynamite texting that the Titans were going to win the division. I don't know, 4 minutes into the game.
That was the best. Listen, not to get off topic here, but when you said that last text that he never responded to, by the way, said, "Oops, there goes the division." I literally dropped my phone on the floor and bursted out laughing. The wife was looking at me like I had gone mad, but it was just, oh man, that was golden. You hit the timing on it was perfect too.
I don't know. These looked like two mediocre teams to me. I will say Saquon looked spunky, which is much better than he's looked the last 2 years. But other than that, I mean, this was sort of about as middle of the pack of football as you can get. Inconsistent quarterbacks. Henry didn't look great, which probably is a little bit concerning. Like I said, Barkley looked pretty good, but, I don't know. These just look like mediocre teams that will, depending on how turnovers go, win 6 to 9 games on the season. What do you think?
My biggest takeaway from this game is, one, I think Saquon looks about as healthy as we've seen him over the last couple seasons, and that's a really good thing if you're a Giants fan, because this vehicle, this truck that you call the New York Giants, is only going to go as far as the motor, which is Saquon Barkley is willing to take you. He's the one that's going to open up everything for the lack of star wide receivers. To put it mildly, but the biggest takeaway from this game to me, just from watching most of the game and watching highlights, is, as you mentioned, Derrick Henry. We're talking about a New York Giants team here that probably had one of the worst defenses last year, both passing and rushing. And he couldn't get going. And how much of it do we attribute to wear and tear? He's been doing it for a long time. He's been great for a long time. Is it getting to that point now where, I mean, I know it's only week 1, but if this continues for a few weeks, do we start getting concerned that he's at the tail end of a pretty good career he's had so far?
Yeah. He didn't look bad. He
didn't look like himself.
He just didn't look. He looked like an ordinary running back. 20 carries, 80 yards. That's a average running back versus let's say mediocre Giants defense. It didn't look. There weren't 3 or 4 explosive runs that puts him in the 120 to 150 mark. There was just sort of 40. It's a little like what Ezekiel Elliott. There's no longer the 15-20 yard run. There's the 4, 5, 6, 7 yard run. It's not bad. It's just not what it was. And maybe he finds that. Maybe it's just one game. But you look at the playoff game. You look at this game. You start to wonder if the tread's getting a little worn on those tires.
And listen, we already talked about the Eagles here, so I feel fine talking about this. But do you think they miss AJ Brown?
Well,
oh man, he would have helped.
Well,
they brought in Robert Woods.
Can text as much as he wants about the rookie receivers and his 14-yard punt return. Then granted, he muffed the return.
Yes, I know. He
But
got
then
really
our friend
quiet after
Daniel
that.
Jones decided to throw it right to a tight end player in the end zone. So basically, I think that sequence summed up these two teams. The muffed punt, Giants get it, can take the lead, and Daniel Jones throws it right to the Titans player in the end zone. It's just, it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. These teams just, I don't think, they aren't awful like some of these teams are, but I mean, I don't think they're good either. All right, let's go to two teams who we think will be good. Minnesota 23, Packers 7. This one looked dominant from the Vikings, but, I will pull the reins a little bit, and then I'm going to hammer the media a little bit because the Kevin O'Connell, slurp fest is getting a little annoying. I'll go off on that in a second, but, I think this game flips a little bit if Watson catches that pass right off the bat. He drops a, right there touchdown pass. Packers get up 7-0. Instead, they don't. They're out of rhythm most of that game. They didn't get to utilize their running game because they got behind, but both Dillon and Jones, I thought, ran the ball well. But, Vikings played well, did what they were supposed to do. We said this was basically a must-win if we want to take them seriously. They did that, but I'm not quite ready to downgrade the Packers. We knew it'd probably be a little bit of a slow start receiver-wise. You take out Lazard. You take out that Watson had that play right there, right off the start, drops that puts him in a bad spot.
Beautiful throw.
Yeah, right off the bat. So I'm not going to bury the Packers here. I think they'll be fine. We'll see when Lazard gets back and, 4 or 5 games into the season. If they're still looking, a little off on offense, then we'll take it seriously. But I wasn't too worried. And also, the Packers were driving there to make this a one-score game, before the Vikings made a couple plays. So it's not like they ran away with it. But what was your take on this one?
Just the only thing that I really took away from this game was one, those wide receivers really got to help Aaron Rodgers. He can't do it by himself. But, just watching the throw and the drop pass on the drop touchdown pass, because that would have been a touchdown.
Yeah.
It was a beautifully placed ball. Say what you say about Aaron Rodgers, love him or hate him. I'm not the biggest Aaron Rodgers fan, but I can recognize, legit, pure talent when it's there. And he's got it. And that's one of the reasons why he's been one of the best for such a long time. But this Vikings team, man, they're so loaded. They're so loaded. And the part that scares me if you're a Packer fan is that if this is the type of performance that they're going to put forward, there's no way they can compete with the elite teams. Not playing the way they did. Yeah. You got to get those running backs more touches. There's got to be more balance between rushing and passing the ball. You can't put it all on Rodgers, and those receivers have to make plays. They just have to. Maybe when Lazard comes back, things change up a little bit, where some of these younger guys are more of a secondary afterthought for Rodgers. But it's this Vikings team did what they were supposed to do. Yeah. They took care of business. They had to win this game. They couldn't lose to the Packers. To the receiverless Packers, game 1 of the season at home. So they took care of business. They did what they had to do. But again, hopefully this is not a recurring theme with the Packers going forward. Because if it is, then I think it's time to start think about waving the flag.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm going to go in on the media slurp fest of Kevin O'Connell.
Let's hear it.
I mean, what the hell? First off, this bullshit notion that Justin Jefferson is turning into Cooper Kupp because Kevin O'Connell came there and they put him in motion like the Rams put Cooper Kupp in motion. I hate to break it to everyone. Justin Jefferson was good last year. He was good the year before.
Not to cut off your rant here, but I was going to say that Justin Jefferson was one of the top wide receivers over the last couple seasons, period.
Yeah.
Like there is no, he's the next Cooper. No, he's been Justin Jefferson.
We already knew. Everyone was drafting him as a first receiver taken. We knew he was good. And just because you put him in motion, they were flashing. Last year, they only ran 14 motion receiver plays. Today, they've run 35. Great.
No, so you're telling me that a different coach with a different philosophy and a different play style plays things differently than previous coach?
Also,
that's odd.
The fact that Kevin O'Connell gets credit for Cooper Kupp, who, by the way, was good for the 5 years beforehand, before Kevin O'Connell was even on the scene. He was their offensive coordinator for 1 freaking year.
The problem is that a lot of people didn't watch the Rams play those years, and they didn't see Cooper Kupp. I mean, he had a couple seasons where he got hurt.
Yeah.
But the fundamentals have always been there with Cooper Kupp. His problem was, 1, he didn't have a good quarterback. 2, he just couldn't stay healthy. You keep a healthy Cooper Kupp for an entire season, and you put him with the gunslinger like Matthew Stafford, and you get what you got last year. Yeah. It's just how it is.
Yeah, it just was driving me nuts. Motion stats and, oh, look, Justin Jefferson, he's going to be Cooper Kupp in this offense because Kevin O'Connell is here. Great. Justin Jefferson is really good. We're all stunned at this development. You know what? I could probably go there and call plays, and Justin Jefferson would get open and score touchdowns and get lots of yards. That's what talented receivers do. The coach doesn't bloody matter in that. He can scheme plays up that gets him open, but guess what? Pretty much any football coach who has any offensive knowledge in the world can scheme up plays to get wide receivers open. That's sort of their job. It was driving me nuts, and we're going to get a whole season of this, and then they're showing him jumping up and down like he just won the Super Bowl because he won game 1 at home, and they scored 6 points in the bloody second half. It wasn't like they put on an offensive showcase and scored 50 points, and Justin Jefferson had 600 yards and 7 touchdowns. It just was driving me insane. And it just makes me want to hate the Vikings even more if I have to hear about the greatness of Kevin O'Connell, who was an offensive coordinator for 1 year for the Rams. And I hate to break it to everyone, but that's sort of like being the defensive coordinator of the Patriots. You basically don't do shit anyway because Sean McVay is the one running things there.
Now, I will say this, okay? My biggest gripe with this Vikings team, and this is, pre-McConnell, is they've always. I've called them this for years. They're probably the best Jekyll and Hyde team that I've ever seen, and that's what usually gets me upset about it. Now, give me a consistent season, and then maybe I'll start praising the coach a little bit for keeping some consistency going. But until I see an entire season of them playing up to their potential, I can't really give the coach credit for anything that this guy Jefferson has already done for himself.
Well, be in store because they're playing the Eagles next week. And from what we saw, guess what? Justin Jefferson's going to be good again. And we're going to get how many times he went into motion to get open.
You know what the plus side to all that is?
Justin Jefferson open, lining him up and running him in a straight line. He's open.
Oh, that'll do it. The best part of this whole, Jefferson thing is he's on my fantasy team. So, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, you have him in motion now. So he's going
to win because of me.
Crowd.
It was because of me. I said put him in motion and he'll be the next Cooper Kupp.
Yes, I'm aware. All right, we're off that one. Chiefs Cardinals, 44-21. This is why I don't like football stats, because basically the Cardinals do not deserve 21 points. And you look at Kyler Murray's numbers, 22 for 34, 193, 2 touchdowns, 5 carries, 29 yards. You'd think he was effective in this game somewhat. This game was basically over from, I don't know, the 6th play of the game when the Chiefs went down there and scored. The Cardinals' defense is terrible. The offense didn't look much better. And the Chiefs are really good. That's basically my summary of this game. What do you have to offer?
I mean, the only thing I can say is maybe when Hopkins comes back, it kind of opens things up a little bit more for this Cardinals team. But Kyler Murray looked exactly the way he did to end the season last year, which is not what we're used to seeing from him. This Cardinal team over the last few seasons has started off really hot, and it's not good for them that now they're starting off a little bit slow. Now, again, it's game one, but we'll see if they can clean it up a little bit because they look pretty bad.
Yeah. Anything to offer? Chiefs good. I mean,
I tell you what, the
they
Chiefs,
looked balanced, but I think we all knew that was coming once they released Tyreek Hill.
yeah, and we talked about that, during the offseason shows. We talked about how maybe it would bring a little more balance and they'd be able to spread the ball a little bit more. I got Hilaire in one of my fantasy leagues, so yeah, I'm also happy about that.
All right, Raiders Chargers 24-19. The Raiders didn't play great, but sort of found their way into the game, and the Chargers played great and sort of found their way into a game. I think that sort of is the book on both teams. I thought the Chargers played pretty good football for most of this. Herbert looked good. They played pretty balanced football. They didn't, get behind and then, make, Herbert have to charge back and throw 50 times. Slow start for Carr, handful of picks. A couple of them were bad throws, but also I thought that offensive line was pretty poor, and the Chargers were getting to him really, really quick. Now, a lot of that is that front line. Mack looked really good. Bosa looked good. What'd you make of this game? I just thought it was a pretty solid football game. Raiders a little sloppier than the Chargers would probably be my overall analysis.
Well, going into this game, I was kind of big on the Chargers. I thought that it would be a tough game, a lot tougher than it turned out being. But one of the things I mentioned in our show was I thought that Bosa and Mack would complement each other. And that's exactly what it turned out to be. They put together a pretty deadly pass rush, man. And, when you're putting Herbert in a situation where he doesn't constantly have to keep coming back, he can put up some points, but he doesn't have to catch up. It gives those defensive guys a chance to pin their ears back and really get after the quarterback, which unfortunately for Carr, it had to be them. But, for the Raiders, there's a lot of positives too. Even in a loss, they didn't look that bad. And it took a little time to get going, but you saw later on in that game the connection between Adams and Carr. It's still there, and you can expect a lot of big things from both those guys. And I'm not just saying that because I have Devontae Adams in my fantasy league.
Yeah, turnovers concerning. I thought the defense on the Raiders was better than I thought. It wasn't great, but they got a handful of stops when they needed to. I will say, speaking of time mismanagement, I thought the Chargers sort of mismanaged that whole fourth quarter, which is what let Las Vegas back in the game, which is sort of a trend coming over from last year with the coach. The Raiders basically had the ball back to drive down and win the game. The Chargers got the stop, but I will say of concerning marks, the way the Chargers couldn't put it away. It piqued an eyebrow of how they close out games, and once again, is this going to be one of those where Chargers dominate and other team sneaks up and gets a win here?
I'm just going to chalk that up. I mean, it's definitely concerning, but I'm going to chalk it up.
The Raiders are a good team too. That's the other thing.
That's exactly it. Not only are they a good team, they're a divisional rival. They know each other really well. We saw it last year, in that last game to get into the postseason. So I won't give them too much grief for that, but it's definitely a little concerning.
Yeah, it's just an eyebrow raise that probably more betting wise when you see them as,
yes,
6-point favorites. And you're like, what is this team going to do the last 8 minutes of the game?
Don't let it back in.
All right, let's move to a game that was not a great game. Tampa Bay, Dallas. This was played. About all I can say. 19-3. Tampa Bay's defense looked good, I guess. The offense looked okay. They really couldn't score touchdowns. This probably should have been 65-0, basically. I don't know. Cowboys looked terrible. I will say the defense looked a little frisky, but the offense...
That's what they were last year.
The offense was borderline atrocious, and it's not going to improve now that Dak's thumb is broken, though he was freaking terrible in this game before the thumb. So don't let that, that thumb came much, much late in the game when it was already well aware that the Cowboys were not capable of moving the ball. I mean, I don't even know. We had a discussion Thursday of, which team do we think's probably on the steeper down slope. You thought it was the Cowboys. I thought it was the Bucks. It's clearly the Cowboys. I think we're also in danger of this just being a total wash season for the Cowboys. That line looked terrible. They couldn't really get the running backs involved. Both you and I had our concerns about CeeDee Lamb as a number one. 11 targets, 2 catches, 29 yards. Yep. And, you can give me that, he's getting coverage. He's getting coverage because they don't trust anyone else. But that's what a number one receiver is. It's you get coverage, you get open, you make other people open. Cooper Kupp doesn't exactly have any help. He still came away with 10 catches and 100 yards. It's number one receivers get their catches and yards.
Listen, they don't throw that title of wide receiver one around loosely. Yeah. It takes a certain type of guy to be able to man that position and hold on to it. I think they miss him. They miss Cooper. That's really what it is. Cooper was taking so much pressure off those other wide receivers.
Cooper was the one. He would get coverage. He wouldn't get open deep, but he'd get open in between, which would let CeeDee Lamb, which was the other comment, well, when you get CeeDee Lamb in space, he's great. Well, when you're a number one receiver, you don't get a lot of space. That's the point. People put their coverage on you. And it just, nothing looked good on the Cowboys side. That was really bad.
I will say I did really enjoy opening up my sportsbook app and noticing that I hit that Mike Evans first touchdown. That was kind of nice.
That was a nice one, especially since there wasn't a touchdown for 3 minutes.
I know. Well, I was so concerned because the Cowboys had the ball first, and I was like, "Oh, they're going to score a touchdown."
Yeah, you didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me, this is the way the game's going to go, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But yeah, sure enough, not much more to add that other than the fact that this Cowboys team, it's bad enough that they lost and they're dealing with all the issues they're dealing with, but now they got to deal with it without Dak Prescott. So we'll see what they do going forward. There was a rumor, though, really quickly. I heard something this morning about the Cowboys possibly signing Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
I doubt that. I very much doubt
I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening, but I was wondering if you had heard anything.
No, I hadn't heard anything. Tampa Bay side of things, I mean,
Brady could have used a little bit of preseason.
Yeah, it wasn't great. The defense looked good, but I don't even know how much of that was the defense and just how terrible the Cowboys' offense was. So,
if you're a Tampa fan, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know what to make of Tampa. It didn't look good, but they dominated. So I was just.
If you're a Tampa fan, here's the silver lining. Godwin. I didn't think he was going to play. I thought that he wasn't ready yet, and the fact that he was able to suit up. I know, but at least it's a positive sign that he was able to get back week one. I think that's a positive sign. So we'll see what happens going forward. But listen, the Bucs, thankfully for them, they play in the NFC, and as we've seen through week one at the NFC, a lot of issues.
Yeah, definitely so. Last game, Monday night, Seahawks 17, Broncos 16. Let's just say they did not conclude the Sunday-Monday combo with their two best games. Speaking of interesting coaching and time mismanagement, I guess we choose to kick 64-yard field goals instead of trying to move the ball a little closer. But, this looked basically like Seattle Seahawks football. Geno Smith, efficient, unspectacular. They didn't pound the run quite as much as, I thought they would. But, Penny was really good. 12 for 60, looked explosive. The Denver running game didn't get going. Russ got his numbers, but I didn't think he looked great either. What'd you make of this game?
For the first thing I'll say is this. I thought it was a little disappointing. Now, listen, I know that, we're all fans and we're fans of the teams and not the players. But after everything that Russell Wilson did for that organization, bringing a Super Bowl and, all the winning culture that he put in there along with Pete Carroll, because it wasn't just him, and the Legion of Boom, to boo the guy, I thought was a little dirty, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I understand everyone's got their own, but I thought after everything he did, at the very least, he deserved at least at least a moment of silence as he walked into the stadium. But they booed him from the beginning, and they just stopped booing him. But now he got to see a little bit of what my quarterbacks have gone through going into Seattle to play games against those Seahawks. They pulled off the win. I didn't think they had it in them. I really didn't think they had it in them. I normally would attribute this more to the Broncos not playing up to par, but I think Seattle, especially defensively, really stepped up this game. As you mentioned, Geno had a really efficient day. He made throws when he had to make throws. Penny, even though he didn't get as much work as I would have liked for him to get, he looked just as good as I remember from the last time I saw him. And there's definitely some things to be happy about if you're a Seahawks fan. If you're a Broncos fan, it's week one.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. Another thing that concerns me about Russ, 1 carry, 2 yards. I get it. He's not that kind of quarterback anymore, but that's sort of what made him good. Was on 3rd down, he could roll out and scramble and get that first down.
He tried at one point. He got taken down. They caught up to him.
That's the other thing. It just looks like there's wear and tear there, and I'm not. He's much better than Geno Smith. We see that. It's just little things that make me concerned. He's not that quarterback that he was, where he was never a quote unquote running quarterback, but he'd make 5-6 runs a game, where he'd get the first down and move the chains, or he'd sneak one into the end zone and get him a touchdown. You mentioned it. They had 2 fumbles on the goal line, handing it off. Now, granted, that's a little fluky, but that should be, a play-action bootleg for Wilson that has a run-pass option. And he sneaks in, but he just doesn't seem to want to carry. And the other thing, they didn't even have targets to the wide receivers until like 5 minutes.
I know. It was all to the tight ends
quarter.
and the running backs. Yeah.
I didn't understand that game plan. And then you got the stupid decision at the end.
To go for the field goal?
Yeah.
What is it with Russell Wilson and go and not – I don't understand. Listen, I like Russell Wilson. He was played on an opposing team for my team for years, and he caused a lot of misery for me, a lot of long, sleepless nights. But I like him as a player. I have always respected his talent. And I sat there and I watched him like, are you really going to try what would be the second longest field goal kick in NFL history?
Yeah.
Instead of giving it to the guy you just traded for and paid tons and tons of money to.
Yeah,
and this is what
weapons. It's not like, oh no, we can't force the ball into Cortland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. It's like,
I mean, you saw that bomb where he scored with Jeudy. I mean, the arm's still there. It's just I have no idea I put that on the coach. I mean, that's really what it is.
It was very, very weird. Granted, it's his first game as coach. We won't want him fired yet. but a couple more decisions where we're kicking 65-yard game winners instead of trying to get a first down. And also letting the clock run out. That was the thing. There was like 45 seconds left, and he just let the clock run down.
Yeah, it's almost like they thought they were in Denver. They're up in Mile High, and you know what? With the elevation, we might be able to get this kick through. I have no idea what he was thinking, but game one.
Yeah, I know. All right, that wraps up our recap for the week. We'll be back on Thursday to have our picks and our bets for the week. Be sure to catch us. Also, college football. Me and the Dynamite will be here on Wednesday with his no longer division-leading Titans. It was a good run for 15 minutes there. But nonetheless, the two teams that tied take over the division lead in that one. But Wednesday, we got our college football picks and best bets. Thursday, me and Achilles Reign back at it with our NFL picks and best bets. Anything you got left for us, Achilles?
No, I'm really excited to listen to your college football show. Dynamite gave me a sneak peek about one of his two-team parlay he's got going on with odds of like plus 10,000 or something like that. I know you know what I'm talking about, but I'll leave that for the show.
Well, I'm very excited to watch that one not hit.
Let's just say somebody might have put a couple bucks on it just for fun.
All right, that's our show. And we're out.